It's a lot of tension when you're focusing manually. So with this camera, I'm able to not stress about my eyes and my tension. I'm able to move and really be focusing only on creativity. It really helps me to focus on the composition and find the right frame for creating a story. It's like I'm framing and it's there, I just have to press. I can keep moving and I can create faster. It's an amazing feeling. I'm seeing myself using this camera pretty often to shoot faster, to edit faster. I can't wait to have more freedom to create.
Hello, my name's Sean LeBlanc, and I'm a wedding and portrait photographer from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where I live with my beautiful wife and my two young, very energetic boys. And so I got my first DSLR about 10 years ago on a mountain biking trip to Moab, Utah. But it was really on that trip that I did very little mountain biking and lots of playing around with my camera. And it was really at that point that I fell in love with photography. And so from there, I started to photograph families, which eventually led to weddings, which led to entering some competitions for weddings, and I started to do quite well at those. And that ultimately led to destination wedding photography work. And so I was doing this all the while. I was an engineer at a large energy firm here in Calgary, and I would often take my camera out to project sites with me to take photographs of the work I was doing out there. But then in 2016, I had the opportunity to photograph a destination wedding in Japan. Incredible opportunity during cherry blossoms. And it was one that I almost missed because of all of my corporate world commitments. And so it was really at this point that I started to look at leaving the corporate world behind and becoming a full-time photographer. And so eventually I took a leap of faith and resigned from the corporate world. So this is me moments before walking down the hallway with my letter of resignation to tell my boss that I was leaving a great 14-year career as an engineer to pursue a great dream of becoming a full-time photographer. And so I built a studio. I live on 2 acres on the west side of Calgary, Alberta. And so that's where I built my studio, and that's where I operate out of now. So I primarily focus on luxury wedding work as well as fine art portraiture. And so everything is kind of centered on creating beautiful printed work for my clients. So you can see here with all of the wall art collections that I offer. But I'm here today to talk about the art of wedding day storytelling. So how do I tell a story of someone's wedding day? And so I'm going to go through all of those components here. So when you think about the elements of a story, you have characters, the plot, settings, point of view that you're telling the story from, and then of course the theme. And so when it comes to a wedding day story, those characters are the bride and groom and all of their guests. The plot is a series of events. So how does that wedding day unfold? The setting, so the beautiful location where the wedding is at, as well as the venue. The point of view, so how are you telling the wedding day story? So typically it's from the point of view of the bride and groom, but also their parents, because that is someone's son that's getting married and someone's daughter that's getting married. Also the theme, which is really all the details that go into a wedding day. So as I'm photographing throughout the day, I'm constantly thinking of these elements. And so when you look at the wedding day events, sort of how a typical wedding day unfolds, often it'll start with an evening reception the night before, which then goes into getting ready. So, there's so much excitement around that, both on the bride side and the groom side. First look, when that bride and groom are coming together to see each other for the first time on their big wedding day. Bridal party portraits, family portraits, so capturing beautiful photographs of all their close family. the wedding ceremony itself, bride and groom portraits, and then finally the evening reception. So during all of these events, I'm constantly thinking about light, composition, and moment. Because it's really these components that make up compelling photography. And so as I'm going through all of these events on a wedding day, I'm constantly thinking of these three things. And so I'm going to take you through that here. So with all the couples that I work with on their wedding day, they all receive a beautiful wedding album because to me, this is the ultimate way to tell their wedding story. So with a wedding album, this is something that will always work, something you'll never need a charger for, something they'll really have for the rest of their lives. So this is a beautiful way to tell their wedding story. And so what I've done is I've taken a real life example. So I had the opportunity to photograph a beautiful wedding in Carmel Valley, California, about a year and a half ago. And what I've done is I've put together some slides as to how that entire wedding unfolded. And so I'm going to take you through that here. So this is the opening portrait. So this is a beautiful portrait just of the couple getting married. I always like to include this with every wedding that I photograph, just a simple portrait where they're both camera aware, showing them how beautiful they look on their wedding day. Of course, here you can see her wedding ring. You can see a hint of the location in the backdrop. So when I start a wedding album, I always like to start it this way. And so it's a beautiful way kind of to set the scene for how their wedding day is going to unfold. Here I talked a bit about the evening reception, so the night before. In this case, they had the speeches during that time. So when I'm telling this story, I want to make sure that I'm capturing photographs of all of those that are giving a speech, because those are the most important to my clients. So here you can see the bride's mom, the groom's parents. And what I'm doing is I'm capturing all of these portraits or all of these photographs at different angles because I want to capture variety. So I want to make the story interesting so that the viewer can see it from all different angles. The other thing is I want to capture some of the emotion that was part of this reception. So here you can see the handsome groom smiling as well as the beautiful bride smiling. So that's really to show, you know, what it felt like during that wedding reception for them. Here as well, so now the bride and groom are giving a few speeches just to welcome everyone in. So as you can see, I'm still capturing more of that variety that I talked about. Of course, the brother giving a speech and some of those details. So if you remember going back to those elements of a story, now you want to bring in some of the details. So here in this case, the bride and groom holding hands. And of course, the reception went into the night. So now I'm bringing in some creative lighting to help tell the story, bringing in some of those emotional elements. So you can see there's lots of laughter. Of course, everyone's happy. It's just a wonderful celebration. So I want to make sure that I'm capturing those elements. So that goes back to the moment part of light, composition, and moment. And then I always like to transition into the next part of the day with a way to bring in some of the location elements, but also create a portrait. So that way it's kind of an end marker to the evening reception. And now we go into their wedding day. So with this spread here that you see that was in their album, now I'm bringing in some of those beautiful details. So some of the colors that she chose for her wedding day, of course, the beautiful flowers that she had, also the venue, so the location as to where they were. So in this case, the lodge in Carmel Valley, but also their rings. This was something that she inherited. So I want to make sure I'm capturing all those details because these are the details that they both planned for a year or two. And so it's very important to capture all that, to tell that as part of their wedding day story. And then of course her wedding dress. This is something that, you know, she's thought about ever since she was a little girl. And so I want to make sure that I capture just a beautiful portrait that shows a lot of the detail in the dress because often, you know, brides, they will try on many different dresses until they find the one. And so when they do find the one, you want to make sure that, you know, it's best represented in the photography. here. So now the bride is getting ready. So again, bringing in some of those emotional elements. Her bridal party is there with her, enjoying this time. Bringing in some of those details. So again, her wedding ring. But rather than just capturing basic shots, basic getting ready shots, I want to make sure that I'm capturing uh, these these photographs from all different angles. So telling that story from creative angles, but also using creative light to tell that story. So here you can see I brought in an off-camera flash, and that's just to create a bit of dimension, a bit of depth to this photograph here. And so kind of tell that story of how those events unfolded as they were getting ready. And then kind of end this spread with a beautiful portrait with her mom, because of course her mom is very important to her. And from here, we went outside. And so now I'm bringing in some of those environmental aspects. So again, being in California, I mean, there's just beautiful vegetation, beautiful trees all around. So I wanted to bring that into their wedding story. She was a fine connoisseur of wine and champagne. So this was a very expensive bottle of champagne that she had here. And so I wanted to capture sort of a series of photographs that showed her enjoying that moment uh, on this day of celebration with her bridal party. So now we have the groom getting ready. And so you can see all of these details. And he went to great lengths to carefully select a cufflink for each groomsman that represented their personality. So you can see with all these different cufflinks, they were custom matched to each groomsman in his party. And so I want to make sure that I'm capturing that. So he has, a record of it and a way to look back and remember the time he took and the friendships he had during this time. And as you can see, I'm photographing from different angles. So here I'm actually on my back, shooting upward. Okay, here from a higher vantage point, here straight on, capturing some of that beautiful emotion, and again bringing in those details to tell the story. And then now the beautiful bride is getting her wedding dress on. So a very important moment. This was something that she told me beforehand that she really wanted to capture, was her mom doing up her wedding dress. And so I made sure that I captured this photograph here. But then also I wanted to show how beautiful she looked in her wedding dress. So in this case, I'm using the light in behind her to kind of create this brim light around her head here, and just have some movement in the photograph. Because if you look at her dress, it's got a lot of flow to it. So I want to make sure I'm showcasing that as part of her wedding day story. And then the first look. So they chose this very special location. So I wanted to bring in a lot of those environmental aspects. So you can see that there's this beautiful overhanging tree. And so as I'm photographing this momentous event on their wedding day, I want to get different angles and I want to help tell the story with context. So rather than just taking a photograph of her walking, I want to put her fiance or her future husband in the frame as well, so that it sets that context of who she's walking towards. So that's an important part of storytelling as well. And so you can see these are kind of the series of events of how this whole event on their wedding day unfolded. So it starts with the groom kind of looking off into the distance, the bride kind of walking down, tapping on his shoulder, him turning around, seeing how beautiful she looks, and then a celebration. From here, we hopped on a golf cart and we went touring around the golf course. This is when I was talking about the venue. This is a popular area in the on the venue, sorry, that has an underground tunnel that everyone goes through. So I wanted to create more of a creative photograph for them. So in this case, I was using some off-camera flash to help tell that story, kind of bring in some of the texture of this famous tunnel, and so have that included as part of their album story. From there, we did bridal party portraits. So in this case, I like to capture photographs that look somewhat similar. So make sure there's that consistency there. So here I'm placing placing them in such a way so that the sun is in behind so that we have some shadow onto their face. And then using an on-camera flash, so just a little speed light to lightly light up their eyes, as you can see here. And so I wanted to make sure there was consistent portraits, not only capturing them all together, but also individual portraits, and then doing the same for the groomsmen. So often with the groomsmen, I will do individuals with them as well because it is an important part of their story. They went to great lengths to reach out to their closest friends and family to invite them to be part of their bridal party. So I want to make sure that, we're celebrating the fact that they did that. And then some more fun photographs. So, a wedding is a celebration. So, in addition to having something that's formal, you want to have something that is also fun. So just by having the bridesmaids sort of squeeze together and then come away a little bit, they always start to laugh when they're doing that. And then something I like to do with the groomsmen is just have them walk, get them doing something, and I'll always say, go rough up the groomsmen a little bit. And so that leads to these great smiles, more natural emotion that you see in these photographs. And so those are something that I always do. Just that way they have that memory that's part of their album and their wedding story, of how happy they were on that day with their closest friends and family. And then I always like to do a formal shot of everyone together. Again, these are close friends and family that they went to great lengths to invite to be part of their bridal party. So I want to make sure that I'm properly documenting that. And of course, their family. A lot of family travels from far away. You want to make sure that they're part of their wedding story as well. So I'll always do a shot of sort of everyone that attended the wedding. That way there's a record of it, but also more formal shots of those that are closest to them. So often parents um, and close friends as well. And so now we're into the wedding ceremony. And so it always starts with the groom and the bridal party walking down the aisle. And so what I'm doing here again is capturing that variety, because with variety, it makes the story more intriguing. It keeps the interest as to what's happening again when you have that variety. So here I'm using a combination of wide angle lenses. So here when the groom is walking down the aisle, as well as telephoto lenses, where I'm able to capture some of this close-up detail, of the parents walking down the aisle, sisters-in-law, um, and just telling that story of how, excited and emotional everyone was walking down the aisle. Here with the bridal party, again, there's that variety that I was talking about before. But not only that, you can see there's a consistency to it. So all of the coloring and the theme and the details are all there. So again, when you have that consistency, it just comes together as a beautiful design when you're telling this wedding story. And of course, the big moment when the bride walks down the aisle to see her future husband at her wedding ceremony. So this just shows how this entire event unfolded here. Okay. Something I love to do is get an over the shoulder shot. So when the groom sees his bride for the first time, again, setting that context where the groom is in the foreground and the bride is in the background in focus. So that way it really gives you a sense that you're there. I mean, you're at this wedding and seeing this beautiful moment unfold here. And then again, getting back to the variety where I've got this shot and then I'm running around to get the shot where now the bride is in the foreground and the groom is in the background, and just getting the expression on his face as he sees his beautiful bride walk down the aisle. Here, so bringing in some of the emotion, some of those environmental aspects of the landscape. We were in this beautiful vineyard, so I want to capture a wide angle shot to bring in all of the guests, these beautiful trees and sort of everything that made up this wedding ceremony. So the rings and the exchanging of vows, and of course the first kiss, those are major things that happen during a wedding ceremony. So I want to make sure I'm ready to capture those. Of course, a detail shot, so getting in nice and close to get some detail of the wedding rings, because that's what that really seals the wedding. And then as well as the first kiss, so making sure I'm in a proper location where I can get a great shot of the first kiss, because that's the first time that they're kissing as a married couple. So I want to make sure I'm ready. I want to make sure I've got a telephoto lens ready to capture when that does indeed happen. And so now this is one of the most exciting times during a wedding day, is when they're a newly married couple and they're walking down the aisle being congratulated by their friends and family. So often what I'll do in this case is I'll use a bit of a wider lens, so my 35 mil. I'll shoot it a little bit wider open, so usually around f4, f2.8, and I'll just walk backward with the couple. And I'll take a number of frames. I'll usually fire off, 50 to 100 frames, so I can capture these beautiful moments where they're just so excited, their friends are excited. It's just an amazing time during a wedding day. And so again, I'll just walk backwards with that setup and just keep shooting, and I'm able to capture these beautiful memories here. From there, we'll go and do bride and groom portraits. So here I want to bring in some of those environmental aspects, but I also want to showcase, their beautiful attire. So, he's looking very handsome. She's looking very beautiful. You want to show them together. You want to show them moving together, dancing together. And so that's exactly what I was doing with this spread here. And of course, being in California, there is incredible California light. It's almost like a famous thing in California. So I wanted to make sure that I was capturing some of that as well. So here, as I talked about, more formal portraits where you can really see her beautiful wedding dress, showing some of that detail here, as well as his tuxedo, how he looked on that day. So again, all important elements when it comes to their wedding story. And then almost like a hero shot, where I'm bringing in that California light that I was talking about before, these beautiful environmental aspects. So just there was this huge tree. And so when they see this, I mean, it's almost like they're reliving this moment where they just got married in this beautiful location. They're just excited to be with one another. And so I wanted to capture that and capture it as a full spread in their album. One photograph, like I say, is the hero shot, one that they're going to truly remember what it felt like on that day. And so here, just even taking a bit more. So now getting some more of the detail shots, right, with her wedding ring, getting in nice and close. Of course, it's, again, a celebration of their love for one another. So you want to show them close to each other and being, really having an amazing time with one another. And here, again, they got married on a winery or a beautiful vineyard. So bringing in some of those aspects as well. They took the time to book this venue almost 2 years in advance. And so I wanted to make sure that I was capturing some of those details of the location, but also having them in that location with beautiful portraiture on their wedding day. So now they're into their evening reception. And so I'll often use creative lighting, so off-camera flash. For a lot of the venues that I've worked with, the light is often horrible, to be honest with you, inside of these wedding venues. And so that's where I'll use off-camera flash to help tell the story. So here, they went right into their first dance, which of course happens with most weddings that I photograph. And so I wanted to make sure that I was ready for that. So I had 2 flashes set up, 2 off-camera flashes, and I caught them just as they're coming into the reception, walking to the dance floor together, and getting some of those details. Okay, so you can see their friends and family that are there to congratulate them and watch them dance their first dance as a couple, a married couple. And so I want to be capturing those emotions and those dance moves that they've been practicing and just have that come together as one story in their wedding album. And of course, during their wedding reception, there's typically speeches. So this is an opportunity for close family and friends to, share some, I guess, advice or some beautiful words of what that couple means to them. And so I always want to make sure that I capture a great portrait of everyone that gives a speech. Usually that's parents, also members of the bridal party. And so, but not only capture a great photograph of them, but one where they're truly happy. Again, because this is a celebration. So, when they look back on this, I want all of the photographs that they look at to move them some way emotionally. And so often I'll select those photographs where everyone is just really happy. There's usually some tears involved and just everyone's coming together. And then the same thing with the bridal party. I talked a little bit before about setting context, where either the groom was in the foreground and the bride was in the background, or vice versa. So here I'm just doing a very similar thing where the maid of honor is giving her speech, and obviously she said something very funny, but you can see the bride and groom that are reacting to her comment here in the background. And I'm using two off-camera flashes to, again, help tell that story, where I've got one on the speaker and then one on the bride and groom. So that way it's more of a creative way to help tell this story, going back to light, composition, and moment, and bringing those three elements together. And then the cake cutting, here just getting different angles, so capturing more variety. So that way, again, it creates more of a dramatic visual and more of a compelling story when they're looking at their wedding album. And of course, they gave a beautiful closing speech as well. So I wanted to make sure I was capturing all of those details. And then finally, ending their album or their wedding story with just a really fun portrait. So a way to kind of close the story, close their wedding album. This was part of their dance move that they had practiced for over a year. And so that's why I chose this photograph here as a way to kind of end that story for them. So in summary, when telling a wedding day story, think about those elements that I discussed. Certainly the bride and groom, their point of view, how would they like to see their wedding day story, many years from now. Family and friends, certainly with the parents. Again, it is someone's daughter that's getting married, someone's son that's getting married. So it's important to keep those aspects as part of the wedding day story that you're capturing. Location and venue, bringing in those elements. Again, a lot of my clients will take 1 or 2 years to book a venue, and so you want to make sure you're capturing all those details and all of the beautiful location that they spend so much time to bring everything together. Then of course details, so wedding ring details, the first kiss, bouquets, sort of all of those things that they took the time to plan and make those part of their story. And then with all of that, thinking about light, composition, and moments. So where can you get those creative angles? Where can you utilize that creative light? Where can you capture the best moment and positioning yourself in those locations? And so thank you very much. It was a pleasure to speak with you today. You can find me on Instagram at Sean LeBlanc or on my website at www.seanleblancphotography.com.